positive outcome.
Could I just ask? Sorry.
Could I just ask, your legal fees that you've had up to now or are likely to have in the near future, is that the payment for that, is that going to come from public money, from Sports Council funding? If it's not, where is it coming from? Also, you mentioned there the...
Maybe to clarify, that will come from our own funding, from our own resources. That any legal fees that arise. It's unfortunate there are fees, quite clear, but it will come from our own resources and from our own reserves.
What resources do you have then, or I mean, what resources have you besides?
We have limited enough resources, but we do have some resources. Just as we moved to a purpose-built headquarters in the last year and a half or so, we had a building ourselves that we owned, which was in Glasnevin, that we actually sold, and we did reasonably okay out of that. We were lucky enough that we sold to the chairman during the better times. Of course, we do not want one penny to go in. It's a fact that it is, and I really, this hurts me enormously, because I've been, as keep on saying, I don't want to make a martyr of myself or all the others. We have worked as volunteers at various levels down through this for nothing for the sport. Of course, we've got an enormous amount out of it. We wouldn't be involved in it, but we have done, and we will continue, hopefully to do so. We do not want one penny to be wasted on issues like that. And I said earlier on, I regret that we were unable to go down a different route at the particular time.
I do know and understand your voluntary input, but it's just, I suppose, to get the facts really. You mentioned also about the recruiting director of athletics, that you're in that process at the minute. I mean, can you tell us what that will cost, or who will fund that? Secondly, and thirdly, and I'll maybe finish up, you mentioned, maybe to link it in, you mentioned the European Cross Country Championships. Is there a shortfall in the funding for that? And if there is, are the European athletics representatives who visited Ireland a couple of weeks ago, are they aware of that? And you know, how do you, if there is a deficit, how do you see the gap being bridged? In other words, is there a possibility, because of the legal fees, because of shortfalls in European athletic or the European Cross Country Championships, that when we get to 2010 that there's going to be a big debt on Athletics Ireland?
Both questions, Deputy, and the Director of Athletics comes out of high performance. That's actually budgeted for. That's a hugely important thing, and has been before. We had the position before it on a part-time in various places. That's actually budgeted for that particular place. We have advertised. The advertisements are just about closing at this stage, and we'll be looking at it in the next couple of weeks, and then we'll go through the process. And hopefully, we will have somebody in place by the time of the World Championships in Berlin, and that we will get a high-quality person for that. That's
current allocation you've got, or will it be
current
extra?
Current allocation. It's actually budgeted within the current allocation, and it is a very, very important thing. It's the various the elements of the sport, of the high performance and the rest. So that would be covered by that. On the European cross country, and again, this is, I think it's a hugely important event. It's one of the biggest events in the country this year. It's one of the few events that RTE will be giving a live signal to the European Broadcasting Union members. There are very few events. Some of the golf events are only covered by Sky. This will go to the various groups. And again, I would like to put on record our thanks to RTE for their massive commitment to this, even though they've constraints themselves. Yes, there are shortfalls at this particular time on the European cross country. We are actually looking at every line item ourselves as a group to try and reduce the cost ourselves, and but there still is a shortfall. We're working in conjunction. Well, we recently, Dublin City Council came on board for this event as well, and they're going to do a fair bit of marketing and other things for us. We are in discussions with the Department of Arts, Sports and Tourism as well to discuss possibilities there. One of the issues arose around, I suppose, the Fáilte Ireland, or whatever they call it, whatever the terminology is now, tourism, whatever, yeah. They originally, when we were making a pitch for this, they would have been part of this, and there's a shortfall of funding for them. But we are working with the department. Hopefully, we might get some success there. We will also be talking to the Irish Sports Council. Yes, the European athletics have been informed of the shortfall, and we're actually in discussions with them, and they understand there are difficulties for other events around Europe. There were difficulties around the European Indoor Championships in Torino recently. They had a shortfall as well due to the economic downturn, and they worked through the whole thing themselves, and they've had with a lot of great difficulties, but there are issues.
The amount of the shortfall, or is that?
Because we're revisiting certain parts of the budget, I prefer not to make reference to what the shortfall, but there is a fairly decent shortfall at this stage.
Okay. Sinna Will, Nain Keshtala, Neil. Okay. Well, firstly, I want to thank you very much indeed, Liam and Patsy and Jackie, for coming in here and to, record our gratitude to you as volunteers. And I think we've said it on numerous occasions in terms of the level of commitment that thousands of volunteers through Ireland in whatever sport and categories are there. And I want to commend you for that. Thank you for your frankness. And we certainly wish you, and seeing as that the cross country is getting very close to my own territory and Fingal County Council involved, to wish you, firstly, I think it's a great honour for Ireland to have an international event like that, and to wish you well with it, and to hope that the finances don't leave you in any shortfall. And again, thank you for coming in here today and for being so frank.
Thank you very much.
So, meeting is adjourned. Sine Day. Gurmir Mahagov.